All right, everyone. We're out here in South Korea. We're in Cheongdo. We're at the farm, my wife's family's farm, and so why not take this opportunity to sort of give you all a tour of what it is that's going on here in Korea. It's raining today. I'm using the Sony. We'll see how this goes. I'm also using this the Comica lavalier mic. Hopefully that's addressing the sound appropriately. So who knows? Anyway, so we'll just do a walkthrough real quick of. So essentially, already what you can see behind me is the boxing area. This sort of undercover area. This is where we do all the boxing of the peaches and things like that. Because it's peach season right now. But fold the boxes, you pack them, you do whatever. All right, here, peach season has sort of come to an end right now. It's sort of I think it's the first day of September actually. So, and then over here, there's just sort of stacked fertilizers and things like that. So let's move on to the barn area. So now we have this field back here. This is just a smaller field. You've got getnip, which is like sesame. They eat the leaves and stuff. Some other vegetables, eggplant in the middle, some peppers. So this is more of like the field for things that you're going to eat yourself, I guess you could say, the little garden, as you will. And you can see that there's pumpkin vine growing all the way around, some corn back there, and then there's the house. We're sort of walking through. Behind me, it's just all the orchard for persimmon and peaches. But these are this is a peach tree, and then all these here, persimmon trees that you can see. So here we have more eggplant, some hot peppers. You can hear the goats in the background here. So the gochu, the eggplant, and then more pumpkin. And then over here we have a lot more, like you can see these are persimmon trees, and then there's peach trees mixed in. And then there's a ton of pumpkin, more peppers back there. There's lettuce back there. There's garlic back there. Onions, don't know if I mentioned that, but all sorts of those types of things that you might use for home cooking, so on and so forth. They're sort of growing all that in here, and it's all sort of grown together. We have the barn area, which has the tractor and these little tiny tractors. Gyeonggi is what they're called in Korean. Oh, I almost slipped on the mud. And what these are just sort of ones that you put this little cart down on, and this folds down, and you sit on the top part here, and you sort of just drive it with your hands. And they're actually really useful, especially in Korea when you're farming at these little narrow pathways and through the orchards and stuff. They can get in there really well, and they're loud, but they definitely do the job. There's two of them. And then up on the roof, we have drying manual. We have drying garlic, which they farm. So you store it like this over the years. You just dry it out and keep it stored up there. Let's go into the barn and take a look at the goats. So they used to have other livestock, but they've sort of a while ago got rid of the cows and stuff. So this is sort of in the barn where all that stuff would be. Now it's just sort of storage for crates. When we do persimmon farming, you're going to load those crates with the picked persimmon, and storage of random stuff. Looks like we're drying some peppers here. Dry them out. Again, makes things easier to store. This is another little car that goes in between the trees and the orchard. You don't really use this as often, but there it is. And then over here, we have the goats. You can see them popping up. They're interested because they're like, hey, where's the food? And so with the goats, we eat the goat meat. We don't use them for milk, just meat. And we eat all of the parts, the skin, liver, whatever you name it. It's very delicious. It's very good. If you aren't eating goat meat, I recommend it. It's very healthy for you, and it's fantastic. So let's go walk through the orchards. It's sort of in between seasons, sort of fall is approaching, so you're getting a lot of fall, rainy weather, monsoon type of weather. So here we have all these persimmon trees, or gam as they say in Korean, and this is sort of what the orchards look like, if you can hear me over the water. And the trees just go back up in there, and it's just sort of as far as you can see is just these trees. And this is a neighbor's plot. They're growing getnip, which is sesame. Again, they eat the leaves for those types of things. As you can see, all up the hillside, you can just see the trees. It's quite steep, and even though the camera probably doesn't allow for you to see how steep it is quite steep, so it can get a little dangerous. This is a good opportunity to show you the difference between a peach tree and a persimmon tree, if you can't tell the difference. So this is a persimmon tree. It's got these broad, sort of waxy, dark green leaves here. And here you can see the persimmon growing on there. Up there, you can see them in there. And then right next to it here, we have a peach tree. So as you can see here, these leaves are narrow, thin, they're longer, they're not as waxy and stiff. And so that's sort of the difference. If I back up, hopefully maybe the side by side, you can sort of see the difference a little better. I'll get my hand out of there so the camera stops focusing on it. So that's the difference at a glance of what they look like. Obviously it's going to be very easy to tell the difference when there's fruit on them and you're picking them and stuff like that. But that's how you can tell them apart, or identify them in general if you're ever curious about it. And so we just keep walking down the road, through the orchards, up to the mountain. Persimmon season hasn't started yet. It's more of a fall thing, and then into the winter when they start to get ripe. And it can be a little difficult to pick. There are no machines essentially to pick this. So, and they're a lot higher, older trees than their peach counterparts. And so you actually, well, what I have to do is climb up in the trees manually, even up to the very tippy top with buckets, and pick the fruit, have a rope, put them in the bucket, lower the buckets on a hook. The person on the ground empties the buckets, and so on and so forth. And then the person on the ground can pick the lower hanging fruit. So it takes a couple of us to climb up in the trees, pick them all, lower them down, and then the people on the ground sort of pick the lower spots while the people are up in the trees doing it. So as you can see here, these peach trees are a little bit lower, and they're broader, so you really only need like a small ladder to get up in there and pick the fruit. You don't have to climb way up into a tree. This is very different. If you can see, these are peach trees. They're very organized. This is the modern way. Before, they used to just plant them and then prop them up sort of like a tent. This one, they train the branches to grow in this V shape. And this makes it very easy to go up and down with fertilizers, etc., your little tractor, and also to pick. The fruit is just literally going to hang down right in front of you on an angle, and it makes it very easy to farm the peaches. So this is sort of the new modern way of planting the orchards. So here we have some ropes and a persimmon tree that's really old, really big, and so they're just sort of anchored in to keep them upright. Every time you climb one of these trees, you get to know it a little better, and you sort of know how to climb them and where you can stand, which branches you shouldn't stand on, and yeah, good times. So on the left we have peach trees, and since peach season is over, you go through and you start pruning. So that way they're in perfect shape for the next season. As we go up the mountain, you can sort of see the town way out there in the distance of Cheongdo. So we're way out here in the valley. It's quite the hike. So usually we take the car the truck driving up the mountain to get to the top, but we're hiking it today, so we're almost there. It's steeper than a 45-degree. You can see the village down there. So it gets sort of treacherous to be farming on these mountainsides. The whole up to the mountainside until it gets lost in the cloud cover there is all persimmon. And so this is the highest orchard, I guess you could say, that we have. And then here's a little bit different tree. I don't know if you can see the fruit or not on this one. This is called a mogwa. I don't know what that is in English, but yeah. Here's a close-up of the mogwa. These are very small right now, but they get quite large. And once they turn yellowish, they'll fall off the tree, and then you just sort of collect them off the ground. My wife wants us to look at the spider. See if it'll zoom in. There we go. Here we are, the base of the mountain, the orchard, and like I said, the camera doesn't do it justice. The angle is very steep. If you fall, you're carrying buckets of persimmon along the little goat path type of trails laterally, you're gonna go all the way down. So you have to be very careful. The soil's loose, you're carrying ladders and all these things, and so it might be like, well, how do you get the fruit down off the mountain? Well, you know, way back in the day, they used to carry backpacks of, you know, just these wooden backpacks with wooden crates and do it by foot. However, now they have a monorail system. This is the monorail. You can see the platform here. I'll step out of the way. I'll take the cover off in a second. But as you go, we park the truck here at the base along this wall, and the monorail goes up the mountain, and as you can see, it disappears up through the mountainside, through all the trees, and it's centered. So you still have to do everything by foot, carrying it to the center to where the rail is to load the crates onto the monorail. So I'll go ahead and show you the monorail here. So this is the monorail. It's pretty straightforward. It's pretty much just a big lawnmower engine that's hooked to this platform cart, and you stack the crates on here. I don't have footage right now because I don't have to yell. I have the mic on my head. I forgot about that. I don't have footage right now because it's not persimmon season yet. If I dig through the archives, I have some from a couple years ago. We're riding up and down the monorail with the GoPro I had at the time. So if you come closer, you know, you just got it's pretty basic. You've got forward and backwards, you've got just the gears. It's, you know, 2 levers, very simple, pull start. It just has this track and these little nubs, and it goes into the sprocket here, and it's essentially just a sprocket system, and it just pulls you along the rail, and you'll just pull right up the mountain. There's the house down there. Okay, so above me here, we have another cool tree. It's a bam tree, and so bam in Korea is chestnut. So if we get a closer look here, you can see them growing here with these green pricklies, and they're not ready yet, but once they fall on the ground, let's see if we can find one here. You can see all these older ones here on the ground, but here's one. And so they're very, I mean, you barely touch them and they prick you pretty bad. You have to be really careful. So there it is. You crack them open and you can get chestnuts out of them. They're very delicious. They roast them here in Korea and all sorts of things. You'll notice that there's a net here. Hopefully it shows up on the camera well. And in some areas there will be barbed wire or electric fence. And if I can get a step closer here, I'll show you why. So if you can see at the base of this peach tree, you'll notice how the ground is really churned up. I mean, I can't really get too close with this lens, but it's dug up right there pretty deep. And what this is metdweji. And metdweji in Korean is essentially wild boar. And it's a big problem in the farming communities up in the mountains. They come down off the mountainside in the night and they dig with their tusk. They dig up the roots and everything, and it damages the tree and can kill the tree. So they try to put up nets and things to stop them. But as we know in the States, especially in Texas and things like that, wild pigs, they get out of control really fast and they're such a nuisance. So we're venturing off the path a little bit into the pine forest, and we're going to come out on a little mountainside. And this is something sort of historical and maybe interesting about Korea. In case you didn't know, the graveyards or burial grounds, and they do it quite differently. So I'll show you here. We come out, and along the hillsides you'll see these sort of mounds, just like over here and one here. And this is how they make their grave sites. They use cremation, and they put them in like a little urn or something, and they put them in these little domes, and they're covered in dirt. They're just like these dirt domes, and the bigger they are sort of is a symbolic of how high you were in society or something. So if you're just a commoner or something like that, you probably have a really small mound. If you're like a king or something, like, you're gonna have a massive mound. Another really unique thing to the village is it's actually very old. So a lot of the people here, these small towns, farming towns, are sort of shrinking in size. A lot of young people are moving to the city, etc. I'm gonna stop walking real hill because the water is getting really loud. And so some of the houses are quite old, and some of them are very old, sort of a traditional Hanok style, like mud house. And so we'll go take a look. There's what the town looks like, or I guess the village. See, behind me here is one of the older homes, and you can see the wall is made out of mud and stone. And let's go check out one of the older houses. You can see the style of the home. So a lot of, obviously, the younger kids, they move out, they don't come back, and the homes are sort of just left here. Sort of a traditional cooking setup where you'd cook in the ground with these pots, and that's the ondol. Back behind there's the ondol there where you heat the house, and here's the front. This is the house. Well, this is our house, my wife's house, childhood home. And it's sort of a hybrid between the last one I showed you and that really old one I showed you. So it's more modern materials. It's still got the traditional roof, and it has some other traditional elements to it, you know, like front opening doors that open all the way. And if we go over here to the side, the traditional sort of cooking pot setup that you saw in that pit. And so this is just a big cast iron lid that you can cook inside of. And then also, if you heard me say the word ondol, this is again, the same thing as an ondol. This little door, it's sort of old, comes out, and you actually burn firewood under the house, create an ondol system. And, oh great, now I can't put it back with one hand. And so what that does is it actually heats the floor under the home. So that's how they heat the rooms in the house. Come around the back of the house, you can see the house is surrounded by, again, a mud stone wall that they made. And then you can see the hangari pots, which are traditional Korean pots that they make things like kimchi, soy sauce, and other stuff in. So anyway, that is a tour of the farm, the farmhouse, a little about the village, and sort of why the channel, when you see the words Cheongdo or things like that, Korean stuff, that's why, because my wife's Korean, she's from Cheongdo, and so what we're trying to do is take a little bit of that back with us to the USA and enjoy farming, and hopefully in the future have our own little peach farm, persimmons, so on and so forth. So hopefully the video is informative and you enjoyed the tour. If there's anything that I missed, I'll probably throw in little clips here and there from past footage that I took, and so you can see more of it. If you have any questions, always let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed anything, let me know, and hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to see more videos. So anyway, until next time.